Alright, let's see what we got going on here. Pop over here. You guys should be able to hear me. You guys should be able to see me. Okay, good. So what are we doing today? Last couple days I've been running. I have new college classes that I'm running, so I was busy with those. Didn't hop on at all. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to hook up. We've got some Ansible playbooks that write out to our sandbox, right? And they check the capacity of our systems. And I was thinking about it, I kind of want to update the way that these messages look. Hey, how's it going, Boris? Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Yeah, the total lab systems is one message, but I kind of want to also show all of the host groups above that. So we'll go ahead and we'll modify this a little bit and we'll test it out a little bit and get this updated, because then it'll show, because right now it just says unreachable systems, but if you didn't know the lab, you'd just be like, okay, there's 18 servers total in capacity. But what we could do instead is we could break it out by what the servers are doing. So the auto labs, the Rocky labs, and the other ones. So let's go modify this a little bit. Also, you know, we got a lot of stuff coming up in the Discord. I always like to show you guys. All these events are free. You guys can just go, just say that you're interested in any of it. Big ones right now: Wireshark, Bash. Right, they're always working on Bash projects, so working on that stuff. How's it going, Kevin? Yeah, we're gonna do some Ansible stuff for sure. Boris, you're on the YouTube side today. Nice, good. And then Hamuda, how's it going? Yeah, so you know, just we're doing all this stuff. There's always something going on, and I'm just trying to have a place where people can come and hang out and not feel like they're. I mean, there's all kinds of places to go learn all kinds of things, but they're all going to charge you. And my goal is to kind of have a place where you can hang out and just even not getting charged. You should be able to do that. YouTuber, modify. Yeah. So here's what we're gonna do. We'll move this up, and we'll put this over on the side so we can watch it when we need to. I'll move this up so it's kind of out of the way. But the point is, we'll be doing messages that'll be dropped in here when we want to. And then let's go look for where I'm running that at. I think that I run that playbook. It no longer runs here, right? P01 Jump 01 is so old that the SSH keys don't even work to the newer boxes anymore. So there you go. This is a very old server that's getting decommed in the environment. It no longer runs, like people can no longer connect to the server. It's only internal. So let's go jump over to the server that we are actually going to use for this. And we're going to find that here is our run that goes and checks all of those nodes, right? The Rocky nodes, the Bastion. This is the one that's going to run, and this is going to be the one that we're going to update that sends over here. In fact, I could run this playbook just like this right now, and it would write out to this, to the, wait, where's that? Yeah, right here. This would be the Prolog lab check. So let's go modify this code a little bit. So we'll go down to, what do I got at root, streams, code, Linux, and then now it's here in roles, and then it's the daily Prolog lab check, right? And in here, there's going to be tasks, and here's our main.yaml for how we gather that info. Then we go down back into templates, and the templates, this is what we're going to have to modify to see this, right? To see what we need to. So what we're going to do, we'll VI this, and right here, we want to modify this a little bit so it doesn't just say total systems. We'll probably say, oops. We'll probably move this down, and then we'll say total systems, and then we will break them out by their groups. So we'll say probably 4. Let's do it like this. You got to use the same templating, right? So 4, and we'll just say group in. I think it's just groups. Let's see. The worst thing we could do is break it, right? And then we're gonna end 4, right? And we can make this a little nicer looking. And in here, what we're gonna do is for each group, we're going to print out. So it'll be group, and then it should be the length, just like we have up there. But I got to figure out how to call that, because it'll be group name. Let's see if we can just get this part to work first. So, in our playbook, when we actually run this, do we have? I don't have a thing that causes it to. I don't have this set to. All right, so we send something to the sandbox server every time this runs, no matter what. What I sometimes do here is I add another condition and whoops, jeez. I do something like this, and I say and. Let's actually switch that. I think we need to use this. Score and report equals true. That should work, right? And then that will, yeah. So that'll only send now if we do that. So let's go test this real quick. We'll right quit it. We're going to cron tab -L, and we're gonna run and grab this big old playbook here. And then now when we run this, watch, it's going to break all over the place. Fantastically bad. It's going to break, but there's a reason this is going to break. It can't report because that condition up there, report isn't defined. It's a broken variable. So you're going to see what happens here when you put a variable into a playbook, but you don't give it to the play, right? So watch, it's going to break down here. It'll go to push it out, and then it'll break right here at the end and be like, I don't know what that is, bro. However, hold on. It still generated we have a, we still write it out. We still write it out to this location here, so we'll still find it in there. So we'll CD down there real quick. Whoops, here. And down here, we should still see the most recent one, which is this one, right? This will also be the only one that's not at that same exact time. And let's go see if it shows all the groups. Yeah, see, so here's the groups now, right? So now that we have the groups in here, we can then do the length of those groups as well. So it's, there's all ungrouped, Rocky, Hammer, Auto Bastion, and then Rocky. Let me think, are there Rocky, Hammer, Auto, and then Rocky 10, but those are the test systems. So maybe we want to change those names, but so we can get the group, but what we need to do is trying to think of how we pull that, because I definitely have. Let me think about this. So we're going to do that same playbook again. Let's go in there. Right here. And real quick, we need to just we need to do a real quick debug. So we're going to do something here. And then it's going to be bar is equal to I want to debug groups just so I can see it. Oh. All right. Again, this is going to break all over the place, but it's still going to show us that debug first. What's going on here? Video Schizophrenic moves everything to Proxmox host now. Yeah, we're moving there. There's a lot of stuff over there. So if you were looking at Proxmox, where do I have that? Over here. I do have quite a bit more stuff on Proxmox now than I did. And then Han Sohai, can Wireshark be deployed as a logging server instead of as an analysis tool? Yeah, Han Sohai, what we do typically, we were actually messing with this weekend. You could have TCP dump just always running on a system and writing to a file. And the nice thing about that is, so TCP dump on your Linux boxes can just be writing to a rotating file. And then you would have like the last X amount of packets or X amount of time or X amount of size. Those are the three variables basically that you can do, where you say like, okay, just run TCP dump for 30 minutes and then keep 2 files of that. So now you have an hour worth of back. So if something goes wrong with your server, you have that logged. But Han Sohai, what you would do then if you needed to actually act, like if you needed to go grab that data and do something with it, you would go into you would probably pull that out as a PCAP file because you're writing it to a PCAP or a PCAP NG, and then the PCAP file you would pull that out and then you would look at it with Wireshark. So your system, so to that point, you could have something always sitting there listening if you wanted to, or you could also be using the tool Wireshark for that. Wireshark will also do that. We were using it obviously on like a Windows system here, but when you build this, you can have it just run all the time. Yeah. So here's my Wireshark in the homelab, and as you go to start a capture, right? We were messing with this so much, and then we threw everything down into well, there's our pre-filters. Hold on. So we go to our options, and then here, as we output, we can create a new file automatically after so many things, right? Again, X variables, whatever you want. And then you could use a ring buffer with multiple files where you just keep putting a new, which is kind of cool because then it's like it's not going to fill up your system, but you're going to have the most recent events going on in the system. So I think that's kind of cool. Also, I'm missing stuff over here, so I apologize, guys. Let's see. Bootstrap, getting stuff to come up. Yep. We're having a problem with... we went to a newer version of HPCM, which is a Hewlett-Packard Enterprise tool for high-performance compute environments, and we're using SLES in there, and it's like it's like SLES 15, SP2 or SP3 or something, but whatever it is, as we're pulling the image, because we deploy stateless in our environment, and when we do that, we're having a key problem, but we're just doing it down in our test environment, so it's not like anything's really down. But we're dealing with that right now at work. So that's not what I got called out for yesterday. Yesterday I got called out. I had a couple of systems just kind of stop responding, and then we found a switch error today. So those things happen. Let's go look at this again. The thing I need to check is right here. Debug groups. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Ansible underscore groups. How did I do it in the template? For grouping groups, then we looked at each groups. Did I not do? I feel like I. I feel like I did, so that was groups. This should be oops. Dang Ansible. If I could get it right. Oh. Well, that's not great. Fuck it, we'll just do it this way. There we go. That was my risky click of the day. Got called at 4 a.m. Yeah, I'm off of on-call. So, by the way, I said a couple weeks ago, I'm all done with on-call. I don't have on-call again until like late June. And then one of the guys in our group had a kind of tragedy in the family happen. So I said, hey, I'm going to be sitting around my computer anyways. I'll take on-call again. So I did. I took on-call. Yeah. And anyway, so now if he takes my on-call in June, which typically is that how it works, they'll flip it back and he'll take that one. I won't have on-call until after I take, I'm taking most of July off of work, taking the wife on she wants to go on a cruise. I've never been on a cruise before, so we're going to go do that. Hold on. Oh. Man, I could do some dumb stuff sometimes. That's, hold on. That's equals true. Yeah. I'll put a space there so it's a little easier to look at. Yeah. And then we'll just say, right, so it won't send, but it'll at least not error on that now. So there's that. Once you proceduralize and automate the builds, adding to Ansible would be great. I was doing 500 servers at a time. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we do something kind of interesting in the program I'm on. We had to get the servers up very quickly, so we couldn't push with Ansible. And the way I set it up was it pulled all the configurations, and that still works in the lab. Yeah, that should skip there. And then this is still not seeing that, so I gotta think of how. It's not. Is it Ansible underscore groups? Maybe I need to use. Let's see. Again, this is just writing to the local system. It's not sending. These are not all going to Discord. If these were all going to Discord, it would start to get real chatty in this window. But we don't need all that. We don't need to see that right now. We'll see it when we get this fixed. Hold on. Let's see. Is it going to be Ansible groups? All right. It should be groups because that's what we actually see in the playbook. So, what am I doing here? Let's just do. Let's just do it like this. Just do that real quick. Let's just see everything. It's just gonna dump for all the machines, but I want to see what the groups variables are. We should see. I thought it was Ansible. There's the environment, but that shouldn't matter. Now they are alphabetical, so E, F, G, right? And the funny thing is, I know I have this in a playbook somewhere. Let's just get this out of the way. Oh, I know how to do all that. I need to see. And group should be the specific variable too. It should be a special variable. Right, oops, special variables. Yeah, there's groups. Okay. List of hosts that belong to it. Okay. So, if I call groups, it should be a dictionary map, and each group has a list of hosts that belong to it. So, I'm trying to think how I've done this before. We don't need these. For grouping groups, print group, and then. I mean, I thought it was just this. But that can't be right. This can't be right, but we're gonna try it anyways just to see. We're gonna give it the old college try here. Use things like Tower. Yeah, I used Tower quite a bit back in the day. I haven't used it much lately, but we deployed it at AAA and we used it for everything. Yeah, I use AWX in my home lab. I have an AWX server running, which is an old version of before it became an Ansible automation platform. Okay, so this one didn't fail, but let's go see what it actually did. Root, was it reports? What's in root? Daily prologue lab check. Let's go look at the most recent one. Oh, there we go. Okay. But that's still, hold on, that's not right. That's how many, so that should be 5, 5, 5, and 3. So this should be 5, this should be 5, this should be 5. Oh, that's the length of the character. No, that's not what we want. We need the individual lengths. So what I need to do is print out groups. Yeah, that's just the number of, that's not what I want. So grouping groups, there's the group, and then there's a group length, which did the counting of the characters fine for us, but that's not what we need. We need all the hosts that are in there, so it's group. What would that be? Can't see the actual. Yeah, because I thought we could always just debug groups and see what all the variables are inside of it. But that doesn't seem like that's working. I got to think about this one. I can also look it up. List all groups, all hosts in a group. Sure, there's some version of it out here. Ah, so it's groups group. Okay, so let's see if we can do it like this then. So it's groups, and then in there, whoops, inside of group, whoops, square bracket, it'll be group. So it'll be the name, and then its length. That should group, the one that we're actually looking at. Also, that word, the more I look at it, the less that looks like a correctly spelled word. Group. Okay. That should maybe. See. The worst thing it can do is break all over the place. Yeah, we were going to Ansible Automation Platform when I left AAA. We had been on a tower for a few years. And then me and my brother, that was one of the last projects I was doing when I left AAA, was me and my brother were working on building that out. Let's go get this real quick. So we got that. We're not sending out to the sandbox server. Let's go look at the most recent one. There we go. So there's all of our servers. Yeah. Which I think that's fine. We could skip if certain names and that kind of stuff if we want to, but I think that's fine for now. I think that'll look fine. So now, since we've modified this, we need to do two things. We need to check it to make sure that we make the report true, right? So when we put the report true, does it still properly send to Discord? So this should now report right here. It should be right on the screen there in a second. Like my hands aren't on the keyboard. Look, it's going to run through. It's going to send this message in the Discord for us. And if it does, it'll have the newer updates of all the systems. I hope. Nope, it's still skipping. Still skipped. Why did it skip? Did I... My logic's probably bad. And report equals. Let's see. Yeah, we'll see. If this works, it'll pop up right there again. So it's still generating. We know it's generating the report, but we told it earlier as I first started streaming, we turned that off so it doesn't send out all the time. So now we're adding that functionality. So if it works, there it goes. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And that's fine. That looks better because it at least shows what the capacity. And we could even say, we could add to that just to make the template look a little nicer. So total systems, lab capacity for, we just say lab capacity there, right? Give it a little space. Lab capacity. Now, if this works, so the first thing is we got to make sure it sends out to there, which it now does. But now we'll make it look a little nicer and send it out. And then the other major thing we have to do to make this work with the new functionality, let's say, is we have to go add that report equals true into our cron tab. So it'll push out, it'll come up, it'll say lab capacity. That looks a little better. That's fine. Plus, people can mute those channels if those bug them. We don't alert that to everybody or anything. So let's do one other thing. We'll cd to, actually this doesn't matter, cron tab -e. And then we're going to go here and we'll go to the end of this line and we'll add report equals true, right? So now report out, everything else is exactly the same. And then we'll expect, so this was test messages. But now the one after this will be the first real one in the home lab. So yeah, so that's what we did. We added some functionality to send a message about how our lab servers are performing. If you want to see, so I kind of blew over that because people that have, if you've been here before, you kind of know what some of this looks like. But if you wanted to see that, what is this doing? We go to all the servers and we look for their uptime. That's a super simple little check. We just run a shell command uptime, and then we register it as a variable called uptime, right? Now, once we have that variable, we can hold that variable and all of its output and do tests against it later. So that's what we're going to do for this section here to see if anything had rebooted in the last 24 hours. Now, we expect things to reboot in the home lab. If you go into a lab server right now and do something for Prolog, you should reboot the server when you're done. So then we just see that servers were getting rebooted. So then we come down here and it says, when the last login. I don't really use this one anymore, but there's a users check to see if anybody's in the server actively. So if anybody's actually using the server for anything. But this one doesn't really matter right now in the big scheme of things. And then we just build a template, right? And then the template is where the logic happens that actually tells us what's happening with the system. So I'll just VI my template in here. And it gives us some information about when it was run and all that kind of stuff. Comes down here, does that lab capacity with groups that we see right here. Right? And that's fine. I don't mind that the ungroup's in there. And then we look for unreachable systems. So this is a little logic test that we're doing here where we look for all the servers that started, which is Ansible Playhost all. And if you're not in there, if you're not in Ansible Playhost all, so if the host is not in the ones that made it to the end of the playbook, so this is servers that started at the start of an Ansible playbook, these are the ones that made it to the end, right? That's what we're looking at here. And then it'll just drop your name in there. So we have no unreachable systems, meaning nobody failed to finish the playbook. If you ever need that, you come over here to special variables in Ansible, this is where you find those. Ansible play hosts all, a list of all the hosts that we tried to start with. Ansible play hosts, all the ones that made it to the finish line. Anybody that broke their leg in between or had something break in between doesn't matter. So that's what we are looking for, the little logical diff there. And then the reboot, this one's kind of a little cheap one that I also put together a few years back, and this is just something that always works for me, where we want to know if anything's rebooted in the last 24 hours. Well, really quickly, if you've ever been on a Linux box and you do an uptime on it, if it's been up less than a day, so this server hasn't rebooted, so we'll reboot him, and then we'll give him a few seconds and we'll go back in there. If a server hasn't been up for longer than a day, what he'll say in there is a number of hours, but most importantly, he won't have the word day. He'll show the number of hours that he's been up. So I'll come back over here real quick. And the logic here is we look at host vars host dot uptime. So we look at whatever host. So like the first time it'll be like Rocky1. Is his uptime variable defined? And now that was from the playbook. But then we look in there for the word day to be in standard out, meaning we read through the standard out and look for the word day. And if it's not there, then we drop the name right here, meaning the server's not been up for longer than a day, meaning it's been rebooted in the last 24 hours. So there's a little bit of logic going on there. Now we're in Rocky1, and when we do uptime, you don't see the word day anywhere in there. But any server that's been up longer than a day, so like Rocky2, you do see the word day. So that's how we're searching for that. That's a super simple little thing that I use. And I originally wrote this because I was working on these big systems, and I was responsible for what versions of the code were out there on the systems, and they were all stateless. And I wanted to know if anybody had rebooted my servers in the last 24 hours. But it wasn't just because I wasn't trying to be anal retentive about it. I was trying to say, hey, I'm the one in charge of this, so I need to have like positive control. If somebody rebooted one of my nodes, I could go check it and make sure that it had come up correctly with the right info. So, all right, that's good for that. We can get out of there. We know that the cron tab should be good. It looks correct. We just ran it exactly like this. Like we could grab this code and it runs, and it pops out right here. So it looks like what we expect. We've got the right date and the time for our system. So everything should be good there. All right, so that's the main thing I wanted to do. The other stuff that we could do is we can go wander around in, so that was technically part of this lab setup, so we could keep adding more. We also do need to start working on the vault in the home lab. I have some vault projects I need to work on. And then I also have, let's see, we got most of the werewolf stuff moved over. There's something I want to build in this server as well. So where is in Proxmox here, one of the nodes that really has to come over here is this node right here. We've got a server that sits out there that all he's doing is IP tables and functioning as a router. So let me pop him up real quick to show you guys. There's one server here that really needs to move over there. It's C router. So C router sits with two interfaces. If we go to his networking, he's got two different networks. Yeah, well, he's actually got multiple networks, but only really two of them matter. And they are sitting on two different VLANs, and he's routing between the two VLANs. So we need to move his functionality over to the Proxmox server. Also with that, we need to move probably like his base template, because I'd like to be able to deploy him, change the VLAN, and have a separate VLAN, and then if I do that kind of stuff, then we'll have the capacity for people to run. We could run Werewolf inside of the different VLANs in my environment, and then people could practice Werewolf in our environment, which is something we don't have right now because Werewolf needs to be in its own location for it to work. So we do need to build basically a new version of C router out in the environment. So that'll be something to come up and do here soon. What else? For some of you guys, we got a new website. If you guys didn't see it, it's the same. It looks like the same old website, but it's got some newer stuff on here. Also, for people who opt in, this is only for people that have opted in. You can actually be featured on the front of the page for people that have done the different courses, and you could go look at your information. So this was one of the users in our group that finished it. He opted in, so it wasn't like he didn't have his information out there, and he can actually put this right on like a resume or something like that, and that will always bring you directly to his page, right? Also, if I refresh that, it should switch to others. So Shane also wanted to be on there, and here's his information about when he went through. So for people that actually finished the courses with us, they can go find themselves, and they can prove to other people that they actually did the course. I mean, you might say, what's that worth? Well, I mean, as with any piece of education, it's all worth whatever you get out of it, but hopefully it's worth something to you. So some people want to show their stuff there. I'm on there too. If you refresh enough, it'll pop up to me. It should pop up to me. It randomizes in the background. Eric Jacobs, Shane, Trevor. I know it comes up to me sometimes. Ah, there it is. There am I. There am I. There I am. There am I. Yep. And also, again, this hash is always accurate to me. He put some variables in there and stuff. This is pretty good. Trevor did most of the work on this, so made the website really good for everybody that wanted it or cares about that kind of stuff. So, all right. What else are we doing then? Let's check if anybody is actually in server. Nobody's actually in the servers connected right now, but we do have a fair amount of capacity now, right? We moved everything over to the bigger server. This box is pretty much chilling all the time. I mean, he's not even sitting at like a percentage of his CPU yet. So we're going to keep adding more functionality to him. We're almost ready to decom one of these guys. I think the first one that's going to get decommed out of the environment is probably going to be this one. The last thing that's on here that we actually got to get rid of and move over is the InfluxDB2 system, which we're not really looking at the InfluxDB much anymore. So we could probably turn that off and move it at our leisure, and then we could take this server and we could deploy it as Proxmox if we wanted to. So that's something that we're doing. What hardware are you running the PVE on? This over here? Yeah, Prox is. I bought a server back in. It got to me in, I think it was late October, September, October, and it's I think it's just a Dell like 720 or something. But it's 512 gigs of RAM, 80 CPUs, and then I think that is the virtualized CPU count. So 80 total CPUs. And then I think I've got, we can go look, but I want to say it's somewhere around 3 terabytes of storage in this guy. Where's that at? Network CPU IO. I know we definitely have system info. Here's disks, yeah. He's got 3 terabytes in this. This is his yeah, and then 100 gig or 500 gigs up there, but this is mostly our oh man, I need to make that bigger so we can read it. Yeah, lab storage is about 3 terabytes, and it's not super used. That actually does look like that's kind of over. I think that's just because it's here, yeah, lab storage is 29% utilized. So we can add more disks to that anytime we need to. So, hey, the Shy Hat, how's it going? Thanks for the raid. Hopefully this stuff's useful. We're doing Linux right now. We just got done with a little bit of an Ansible project here, and then I'm just kind of showing. We're slowly moving over to the Proxmox environment in my home lab. Most everything used to run on a bunch of XCP-NG servers over here, and we're getting ready to kind of pull everything out. Hip hop hack, yeah, nice. But we're getting ready to kind of decom some of these older servers off. So that was what I was kind of showing people. Main functionality that we still have to move will be our Grafana servers for monitoring and our Prometheus servers. So those will be 2 big ones, 2 big moves when we go to do that. But all the lab boxes are over here. So all the lab boxes have moved. People that can connect in. So in our Discord, people have a functionality to get into our lab environment and do whatever kind of lab projects they want on actual Linux systems, and those are all over here. We run that. There's a back-end tool that we use called Werewolf that you can basically just reboot a box and it comes up clean every time. So there's that. Hate to raid and run. No, it's definitely, I appreciate you coming by. Hopefully if anybody finds anything useful here, they take it and kind of make it their own. We were, again, just kind of working in the, we were reporting out to our Discord here with what was going on in our lab environment. So that's what we were using Ansible for. And then I was just thinking about like what else we want to do. I mean, we really can do anything else we want to clean up the environment. I have projects I need to work on. I'm putting together a high performance compute course for people, kind of people that are pretty serious about Linux but want to maybe move somewhere else in their career. And I know some people have been talking about like, hey, well, how do we get into HPC? And I'm always showing stuff and alluding to these jobs in high performance compute. But I'm putting a course together on LeanPub that'll kind of, I don't know, just walk people through it, right? It'll walk through it according to NIST 800-223, which is the high performance compute standard. And that's the one that I normally, when I teach people or I show our customers, dash 223, this is the one that I always show them. So some of you have seen this a million times for me, but this is still, I think, very valuable. If you're like, hey, Scott, I want to get into that space, but I don't have any experience yet, this is what I think you would go read about, and you would go and understand this concept right here. Because if you can describe this in this kind of context, I mean, when I do interviews with my company, this is the context that I expect people to speak in and understand, right? Because this is how all supercomputers, all the top 500 are built like this in some way. If you guys don't know what top 500, top500.org is a place that just keeps track of all of the high performance compute in the world. So that kind of stuff. Other things about it. Where do I have the? Here's the type of CPUs. So they're not super fast, but they were relatively cheap. I think I spent about $1,700 on that box, so it was the middle of the road server, not some high end one. We are, and I got the approval from the wife last year, but then they never came out with the NVIDIA digits. I'm pretty sure it's out now. I need to get one of these and put it in the environment eventually. I just haven't gotten around to it. What are these? I think these are about $4,000. Yeah, 4.5. I got the wife's approval for me to put it in the lab, but I need to decommission some of the other stuff out because I only have so much power in the home lab, right? I can't be going crazy. But if I take 2 of those other boxes out, I should be able to run this no problem. So, and I have popped the breaker in there before by having too much power. So I'd like to move it down a little bit, so I'm only running a few systems over there. But I do want to get us some GPU workloads. All of that will be back in compute, and we can simulate almost all of this. The things really, like I've told you guys before, that I can't simulate in the home lab are the high performance networks. I could probably get a hold of an old InfiniBand switch or something from a customer or something, and then maybe do a little bit of it, but we couldn't really do it at any kind of real scale. So we couldn't really test that part, but we could build all these other pieces. All these other pieces are just Linux, right? A solid fundamental understanding of building servers translates over into every other thing you do. So anyways, this one, I'll link this to you guys because I do think this is valuable, and this is what I'm building the course to. That course will be over on LeanPub. I haven't really put that out yet. I haven't put a bunch of links in Discord or anything on that, but that'll be up there. I've also told the guys, I've always made this deal with people. If we're doing anything in Discord, it's always going to be free, right? So if I'm running the course and we're doing it in Discord, it's going to be free. But for people that are like, oh, I'll just take the course on my own time, or I'll do it whenever, that's going to be fine. That's just going to be over on LeanPub. And if you haven't ever seen LeanPub, it's this place where you can publish and people can buy things from you, but then you can always publish new updates to it, and anybody that's ever bought it gets an update of it. So it's kind of a nice little functionality, I think, for delivering something useful to people. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. Hopefully that answers that question. What do we have going on over here? So we have, here's our nodes, images, image list. Here's our images. We have a certain set of nodes that are kind of bespoke to the environment, and they're just like individual nodes that don't get built via they're not really part of the cluster, if you want to think of it like that. And then they're off to the side, like infrastructure nodes are typically what we call them. And then there's all these nodes that are like part of the cluster, right? and these ones are stateless. So all these nodes are stateless. So what I need to do then is I kind of need to figure out what I want to work on next, because we got a lot of stuff to do in the home lab. I just get off of work and teaching, because I taught for the last 2 nights. That's why I wasn't streaming. And you just kind of like, what are we working on? So if anybody's got any ideas, we can always talk through those. But for the most part, I do kind of need to build that C router out here, the new version of C router. So we could do that. Or we can, if anybody wants to see the werewolf architecture and how that kind of works, we could look at that. Really, it just, at the end of the day, when you go to a node, right? SSH2 console, auto 1. We would just reboot them, right? Just reboot the box. And then over here, you'd see how when a node comes up, he doesn't have disks. Well, even if he has disks, he's not set to boot from his disk. He's going to iPixie boot off the network. So right here, he's going to figure out who he is. And my servers all boot with 2-stage Dracket. But he just found out that he's auto 1 because Werewolf recognized his MAC address, right? So Werewolf kind of keys off of MAC addresses and tells nodes who they are so that they can Pixie boot. Yeah, stovepipe. So what a stateless node is the best way I can describe it is kind of like if you guys have ever watched the old Scooby-Doo or something, the cartoons, and there's like a trap door, and they step on the trap door, and then it goes like this, and it comes back up, and then they're not standing there anymore because they've clearly fallen through to whatever dungeon or whatever. So the way a stateless node works is it exists over here as an image, right? It's a cherooted image over here. So let's go to image list. Here's my images, and I'm going to say wwctl node list -a for Rocky1. So we'll look at the Rocky1 server. And he's defined by all of these variables in the environment. Namely, he's got this hardware address, 365FB5, right? This is just like an ephemeral internal hardware address that was made up by the hypervisor, right? But if I go to Rocky1 right here, that should be his hardware address right there. It is, right? Well, it has to be. So that's how they're going to connect when he comes up. So the server is existing right now as a real Rocky, Rocky 9 Linux server. You could go to him. As far as the server thinks he's up, he's running on a real kernel. He is no longer an image. So, but he exists when he boots without a back-end disk. So he doesn't have a disk. He's a diskless node. So he comes up stateless, meaning he doesn't have, he's not a thick server or a stateful server. So in my environment, though, then the other question is C router. C router in my environment is just a server that's sitting between 2 networks, and he's got his IP table set to forward traffic. That's it. So there were just a few variables I had to set in there, and now he is. So where did I get the term C from? I think it was just because we were calling it like the ProLab. We were calling it the ProLug. I think it was compute. I think we were calling it compute, so it's like over to the compute environment. And then I called it C router because it just routes between the 192.168.11 and the 192.168.200 network in my home lab. And the way that it does that is by forwarding traffic between them. And then the way that we isolate traffic is by VLANs. So that's all C router is. It's just a made-up name. We could. He's a Linux box with IP tables turned on to function as a router. We used to do that all the time in the Linux world. We don't do that often anymore. There's a lot of security things against it and reasons we don't do it. But anyway, so here's Rocky1, and Rocky1, if I were to go to him, would have all of these things as we expect. He'd be sitting there. If I SSH to Rocky1, he would have kernels and all that kind of stuff. But that image that he's booted from exists over here. var lib werewolf. Maybe not var. The user lib? I swear, I thought it was always var. Oh, they've changed it. Hold on. That is var lib. What the hell? Oh. Guys. I'm on the wrong server. Gosh. You gotta stop me sometimes, guys. I'll be on the wrong server doing the wrong things. Now the overlays exist here. So the overlays are, oh, that's overlays. I want the cherooted environment. So here's all the definitions of the cherooted environment, or some people call them CH roots, it doesn't matter. Rocky 9 is here. Here's the root FS. And if I were to cheroot right here, I would be in, for all intents and purposes, that image. Now there's two ways we can modify these images. We can do them right here with image. We can do a command like this and exec directly into it and modify it within Werewolf here. So I can go here and I can drop this command and I will drop into a shell for that Rocky 9 on the system, and I can do a DNF update, and I would update the version of the kernel and all that kind of stuff in that image. And then I would watch what's going to happen. I'm going to say false real quick. So I've exited with a non-zero return code. When I exit, it's not going to build. But if I go back in there and I do like a DNF, we're going to, I hate doing this, but install calce, right? And we'll install calce real quick into that image. Then, this is terrible, terrible thing to put calce on a box. This will install it into that image. And then now, since that was a good return code, right, it'll return as 0 because it was yes. Then now this will build that image. So when I exit this, it's going to build the new image. So then now, oh, look at all that crap that needs to be there. So we'll say yes. I hate it. Yes. And now our exit code was good, which we also have a good one from that. And now when I exit, it's going to rebuild that image to publish it to the Rocky server next time it comes up. So if I were to go, just as a real quick example of this to see it practically, this is, by the way, this is the not the way we actually do it. I'm just showing you guys that you can one-off things like this, but this is not a good repeatable way to do things. I'm going to show you guys the Ansible way in a second here. This is going to build that node. It's going to build that. So I'm going to sh to Rocky 1, who doesn't have that image yet, and do echo test to calce. And it's going to be like, there's no calce, buddy. And I say, okay, reboot, and go pull the new version of your image. So now it's going to go, and he's going to pull that new version of that image that was just set right here. You're going to watch him pull that compressed image here. Well, he's already booting to Dracket, but you'll see it here in a second. He's pulling that from the Werewolf server right now. So you see that. It's right up here for you guys. And then now when I go into that server again, so in a second, this box will be back up. It takes about 18 seconds in this newer hardware. It took about 3 minutes in the older hardware. This one is ready right now. So I can go into it, and then now if I do echo test right into calce, now it actually has that command's built in. But you might look at that and go, well, Scott, that was very arduous, and keeping track of those changes seems like kind of a mess. That's not really the way you build servers. And I say, no, not professionally. In the home lab, we can go add crap and pull it out like that. But this is how we actually do it. So we'll go to root Ansible. And then these are ones where I was hardening these images in the lab, and some of you guys were here when I was doing this. So now my definition of my cherooted environments are right here. And then when I want to run my playbooks, so Rocky 10, there's a bunch of functionality that already existed in our labs before we moved over to this Werewolf server. So I was baking that functionality back into a cherooted environment, but I didn't want to go down in there like I just did and do a bunch of DNF installs, right? That sounds kind of messy. So this is my Ansible playbook. And all I did when I called it, this is what it looked like when we called the hardening right here. We did it a few times because we were practicing and messing around. But it calls this cherooted environment right here, right, for Rocky 10, right there. And then its Ansible connection is cheroot. And you need to download there's some general stuff that you need for that to work. Sending Grounds asked what's on the docket tonight. So what I started with was updating our, I know I'm jumping around, guys, but I updated this so that it has like the lab capacity broken out by the different areas. So I added this to our lab report that goes every morning. And then what I was showing everybody was how we build and bake into an image anything that's happening. So like this Rocky server didn't have calce on it. Then we put it into the image by hand, but I was saying like that's kind of slow. That's not really the way you'd build things. So Then I was showing this is the Ansible playbook where we went and baked in a bunch of packages that we wanted for the lab environment. And then also we had to add this node exporter user to the environment as well. Now there's another thing we did here as well, which is, let's go to Grafana. And let's go to our Grafana dashboards here in the home lab. And then we added in this functionality here. We're going to add another one. And then, whoops, this one is the same one. We're going to change it to, when we moved all these servers over, we had to make sure that we could pull up. That's fine looking, I guess. Kind of small for you guys, but this is just like a little heads-up display of how are the servers in the lab doing versus how are the kind of infrastructure servers sitting off to the side doing. So these are kind of our infrastructure servers doing whatever they're doing. Is that guy really high? No. Some of those kind of seem high. But these are the servers working in the environment. So when we push that over, this is gonna get kind of complex, but I think most of you guys can follow. Our Werewolf server functions in a few ways and does a few things. It does DHCP for the environment, but it also does NFS. So if I do a show mount -E, I'm feeding these out to the environment. The way that those are getting populated looks like this. So if we go to Rocky 1 and do a df-h, they're mounted here. But how are they mounted? How did that get set up? Well, if we cat etc fs tab, here's the etc fs tab that has those values, right? But how is that getting pushed over there? So this is another thing that's very important to understand about Werewolf. I have node images, right? Images, right? Image list. So I have these images, and that image is kind of like the baked-in initial setup for all of my lab. But then also I have these things called overlays, and the overlays are going to take more information from the servers and feed them in. So let's look at this real quick. So we'll look at that Rocky 1 server. So we'll say www.ctl node list -a for Rocky 1. And look at down at the bottom here, it says resources fs tab, and then it's just a big JSON explosion of information that's tagged to this Rocky 1 server. All the servers have the same info, but let me show you how this gets fed into that server. Because this right here, this fs tab, or fstab some people like to call it, is generated on the fly as the server is built. So let me show you how that works. It's templates, right? It's all templates. Everything comes from templates. So we got Werewolf here, and it's gonna look like this. So we say www.ctl overlay list, and then I'm gonna say just show me all the overlays, and that's the fs tab. So I'm gonna say list fs tab -a, and here's all the files that it makes, right? Or all the files that are involved. And then I'm going to say, you go ahead and cat that file for me, because I want to see what is involved with this etc fs tab ww. Now, ww is a template in Werewolf, and it's this big old mess like this. It says, okay, I put this stuff at the top, and then I'm going to loop over some things, right? I'm going to do within a range of this, and you go, okay, well, oh man. Well, I don't want to sit here and parse this in my brain. Does everybody here agree that this is probably, even if you understand this well, probably hard to parse, where you're also going back and looking at this and going, okay, this and this, right? And then you're like, oh, what the fuck, you know? And you're trying to figure stuff out, guys. What if you could do this? What if you could say, cat that file out, but render it as with the data that are available for Rocky 1? Now I'm looking at this overlay right here with this template, and I'm saying take this data out of it and stuff it in there as though it were the Rocky 1 server, and that's how it's going to populate. So one of the things I tell you guys is, like, especially when we're looking at code and it's like all spaghetti, like you're like, well, I'm pretty sure this is correct because it's correct for other servers, and I'm pretty sure this template's right because I based it off of another template I found on the internet. But who knows if you fat-fingered something or did something dumb in there, or there's some file, you know, whatever. We can always test with a render to see if this is correct. So this is super useful. Probably one of the most useful commands I learned in Werewolf was because it used to be that I would make a modification or add something, and then I would go and I would deploy my server again, like you guys just saw me do. It doesn't take long to deploy servers, but then it's like I fired from way over here, and then I walked down to my targets and I missed, and I'm like, shoot. Okay, I'm low. Well, no, you don't want to be low or high. You want to, from back here simulate that it's going to land correctly, and then when you build your server, this is how it renders, right? And this is super useful for a lot of things because, you know, I want to make sure that my if config templates are working, right? So I come up here, I go look at my overlays again, and I say, is if config gonna properly write out the if config? I have two things in there. I need to have the right IP addresses, and I need to have the right route for my server. So I can do the same thing again. I can cat, right? I can cat out if config -a for this file right here, and then I can say render as though you were going for Rocky 1, and it'll render that, and I'll say, well, I hope that's right. Or I can do wwctl node list -a for Rocky 1, and I can validate, yeah, okay, he sees these the .51, he sees this. Okay, is he also going to have his routes in there? I had to write the routes. Some of you guys were around when I wrote the routes out here. So routes, right? Route, that's just route. Some of you guys were around when I wrote routes, and I wanted to make sure that all my servers had a route out to that's the internal interface of the C router node, which is the, you know, the IP tables forwarding C router device. So there's that. Your AI does it for you. Yeah, nice. By the way, guys, real quick, as a note, as we're sitting here talking, I have all of the. I darken this so it's not too bright for people, but these are all the people that are talking in August 8th and August 9th. So people that are coming to talk to the group about different topics, right? There's all kinds of stuff. Like I have a very generic why engineering. And when I say generic, I don't tie this back to any specific form of engineering. This is just why engineering, like what do we do and how does engineering work and all that kind of stuff. And really for people who want to think about maybe even moving from administration up to engineering type roles or even architect roles, I think that this is valuable. But I mean, I've been giving this talk in some variation for the last few years. We're going to have somebody come in talking about thinking like an attacker. He wrote a book on this, Practical Linux and Cybersecurity Insights. So he's going to come. He's the only wild card in all this. He's the only person I don't know from the thing. But he reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, can I talk?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm always looking for people to come talk to you guys. So, Burninator's came and talked to us before. He's a major in the Space Force. I only tell you guys that because he's told you guys that. He's going to do a rel security session, STIGs, and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because, well, so I've been a parent for almost 18 years now, but also, there's something that happens with kids, and some of you guys have kids, so you're going to know what I'm saying is true. You can tell your kid something 100 times, but then a coach says it, like a coach for a sport says something to them, and they hear it for the first time, and you're like, I've been saying that to them for years. And honestly, that's how I feel with this. Like, I show STIGs all the time, and we do STIGs in our security engineering course, and everybody's like, oh yeah, Scott's over there talking about those STIGs. Those are stupid. Oh, a guy who does operational workloads for the government, he's going to come talk about STIGs, and it's all the same stuff, but it's like they finally hear it. But I'm here for it, right? This isn't the Scott show. It's for whoever wants to learn this stuff. Jared's going to come talk data analytics. He's been talking to the group for as long as I've been running the group. I've known Jared since 7th grade, but he's a data architect for his company, so he's a pretty good person to talk to. And then King Buns is actually going to be at my house in a couple days. So he's coming out here. He's in New Mexico right now. He's traveling around and doing rock climbing, and he's going to be in Phoenix for a few days. And it's kind of funny because the wife's going out of town Friday morning, and then he's coming in town. He's going to be hanging out with me most of the weekend, and then I think the wife comes back on like Monday or something, and then he's leaving. So it's going to be like bachelor pad when he's out here. It's going to be kind of funny. As a fellow AI embracing, yeah. So Sending is going to be talking. Stovepipe's going to talk. So people that are actually in the chat right now that are talking with you guys, they're both coming to talk. Dr. Matsuturi, if you don't know him, I put doctor in front of his name because he just got his doctorate in economics, I don't know, 3 months ago or so. Good buddy of mine. He's going to come talk economics, technology, and AI usage. So he does AI for his economics company. Actually, he's moving between companies right now, but he's also been he's a PhD level mathematics and economics guy. So his stuff's pretty pretty good. He talks a lot in economics terms, so a lot of times he'll tell people stuff like opportunity costs, like, oh yeah, you can do this, but you could have been doing this instead, and that's where your real cost comes from. So he talks in that kind of sense a lot. And then Frederick's going to come and talk to us about Spiffy and zero trust models, and he's one of the co-authors of the book. Also, he's hanging around here somewhere too. I don't like outing people when they're around, but at least 3, 4, 5 of these people are here right now in some capacity around here. So a bunch of you guys are kind of hanging out. And then King Buns is going to talk.
And happy Wednesday.
It is Wednesday, yeah. And you know what? People talk about it being hump day. I don't even care about any of that. I just care that I'm off of on-call. I had on-call 3 weeks ago from Noah, and then one of the guys, and that's NOAA. I know that thing's going to spell it wrong. Then I took it again this last week because one of the guys had like a death in his family. So I took the on-call again. But now I really shouldn't have on-call again until like August. And I got called out twice yesterday for production issues. So that's kind of a lot. So 1, 2, pick stigs, 3, 4, read through them, implement them. Yeah, do it all again. Yeah, that's exactly. In fact, that's one of the things as we're talking about this. That's one of the things I've been meaning to do. Oh, shoot. I'm opening new sessions instead of going back. I'm what I normally do in here is this is called rocky hardening because what I would start doing is adding stigs down underneath here, and then we can go get stigs. There's all kinds of free places to get stigs on the web, guys. There's some really good ones that are out there. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel as far as stigs go. But that being said, I'm not going to go do stigs by hand inside of those images. I showed you that image stuff to show you it's possible, but really you want repeatable playbook level stuff so that's all there. And I just haven't moved all my stuff over here yet, but we'll start hardening these up. Also, one of the other things too is I don't harden the labs very much. And you say, well, why not? Don't you want to secure the labs? Guys, I'm giving you root in the environment. You're already root. Like somebody asked me the other day, like, hey, did you patch for copy fail? I'm like, these guys are I'm giving you root. Like what's the purpose of hacking a box you're already root on? The goal is to get to root, right? If you're already on root, what's the thing? Ansible lockdown, that's it exactly, yeah. I know this should be in my history here, yeah. Ansible lockdown's fantastic. But I tell you guys, this is what I talk about often, and I know all the guys that do security around here would agree. You know, let's say I pulled up my Stig viewer right now, and we have 436 Stigs for Rocky 10, let's say. You guys know we could just harden the box to 100% in one go with one of these playbooks, right? It's super easy to do. The dance is, did you go too far and break all the shit that production needs, right? Like there's an old saying, security is the enemy of productivity. And that's not to say security is bad, but it is true. Like I would be way more productive if I could just like drive up in my car, hop out of the car while it's still driving and it goes parks itself, and I can just walk right into my office and start working at a terminal. But I can't do that. I have to secure my car in a parking spot. I have to lock it and hit the little button and turn on the alarm so nobody steals my stereo or whatever. I got to go inside, walk past some guards, probably use a badge. If I forget my badge, I have to go back out to my car. Or if I drive a different car to work, then now like these kind of things. So security does slow you down, but for a good reason, right? I mean, we can all agree that it's not that security is bad. It's just security it puts the brakes on things. And so when we talk to people, we say like, well, you might say, well, then brakes actually make cars go slower. And I say, well, that's true, but you can't go 100 miles an hour in your car without brakes. And you say, yeah, I could. And I go, no, you can't. Yeah, I guarantee you if your brakes were out, you wouldn't drive home at 100 miles an hour. You'd drive home at like 5 miles an hour. So without those protections in place, right, of security, you wouldn't do these things. Anyways, so that's kind of the thoughts on it. But my point is we can harden a box all the way up. That's the easiest thing in the world. That's probably the easiest thing to do is just go drop one of these on one of these images and go. But then does it actually function the way we want? Does it behave the way we need it to for all kinds of things, right? Like there's all kinds of things that we have to get exceptions for, or a lot of times when I'm doing government systems, I'm typically shooting for about a 90 to 92%. I can't always get there's all kinds of, you got to use PKI certs and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not always feasible in all environments. One of the big ones is you're never allowed to use root. You're never allowed to log in as root, but it's like cluster management is almost always done as root, right? We typically root key. and then that's something we get an exception for. But you just have to understand the risk of it. It's the same thing with this copy fail. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, copy fail's super exploitable. And I'm like, yeah, if somebody's got access to your server. It's the same thing. This same thing happened with Shell Shock back in like 2013, 2014. Shell Shock was 100% exploitable if you left a bash shell to the internet. Who the fuck leaves a bash shell to the internet? I've never even heard of that. And they're like, yeah, but if bash was accessible through your Apache, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I've literally never heard of that. But that was also weird when a few years ago Cups came around with a big vulnerability. And I'm like, who runs Cups? And then everybody in Discord and everybody here on Twitch was like, we all run Cups. And I'm like, I've never ever run Cups professionally. I never even heard of that. Well, I know what Cups is, but right, it's the Unix printing language or whatever. It's the print service. But I'm like, I've never run that. Never once in all my years of doing this. I turn Cups off everywhere. So anyway, so that's the kind of thing. Yeah. So Lockdown's a fantastic tool. I'm not trying to get all system political or anything on you guys, but this is what we were working on. I think Sending asked me what we were doing, and I was just getting into. I got asked about, so if these nodes are, if they don't really exist and then they reboot, how do they kind of pull their information? And again, Werewolf is over here doing all these things. Let's just go to werewolf.conf. Werewolf's doing all these things in the environment by default. He's got an IP address for his Werewolf server. He's listening on port 9873. That's his default port. And then he's feeding out DHCP for everybody, right? So DHCP gives a pool of addresses where servers can come up, pull information down until they know who they are. He gives TFTP for all of his little trivial file transfer protocol. Anybody know, without looking it up, what TFTP is? I'm sure all the 13-year-old Linux guys know. Not 13 years in Linux. I'm saying the 13-year-olds, like the teenagers. What's the port for TFTP? Some of you can Google it and find it. But what's NFS, right? NFS is being shared out in my environment. Trivial FTP. But what's the port number? Who knows? Somebody's gonna know it. And then also keys and then all of my mount paths and that kind of stuff. So that's all this. It is port 69. That's exactly right. Yeah, which is why I would expect all the 13-year-olds to know that. So Werewolf's doing all this stuff, but mainly what it's doing is standing there ready in the environment to respond to nodes that are asking, hey, who am I? And if it knows who they are based on their MAC addresses, it'll tell them, hey, this is who you are, this is the image, so that the iPixie process can boot and start. It's oh no, gosh, no, not 6.7, it's 69. Oh, also Sending, I think all the kids have moved past 6.7. I heard somebody say it the other day and everybody's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think kids care about it anymore. I think it's all gone. Yeah, I also tell people, by the way, to that point, you don't have to memorize ports anymore, guys. You could just grep for like TFTP from Etsy services. Your Linux box will tell you all the services, right? I'm a big fan of understanding your services file, at least from a high level, especially these values right here. So what are your well-known ports? What are your registered ports? And what are your dynamic ports? Those are just good values to know. As even if you say, hey, Scott, I'm not going to be a network engineer or network administrator, and I say that's fine, but all your Linux boxes are going to be on the network, so you should know at least the minimum, right? Yeah. Sending grounds, I'm pretty sure it's behind now. Yeah. I'm telling you, Sending, it's weird, man. You're looking at them one day and they're a little baby like you've got, and the next thing you know, they're borrowing the car. So they grow up fast. So all right. So anyways, we've got the home lab pretty well cleaned up for now. We've got the monitoring set up. The monitoring was done two ways. This is kind of where I was at when we were talking. So show mount -E. This is what's being mounted. And then I was going into the overlays to show you that opt/opt is mounted. Mount grep opt, right? And he's mounted read-write, so we can write into there, although typically we don't want to. And then we go into opt, and what's in there? Well, there's this node exporter. So node exporter, and node exporter is just an executable that allows a server to turn on and expose a port, which is 9100 typically, right? So if I curl on my own box 127.0.0.1 port 9100 /metrics, here's all the tasty data being squeezed up every, well, it's being squeezed up all the time, but it gets read every 10 seconds from Prometheus. Here's all the data that my server's sharing out, right? And there's, I don't know, 1,185 lines or so, right? Oh, wow. That's not 11,000. It's 1185. That's how many lines there are total, right? Well, that's what's being shared out to here. But how did we turn that on, right? You've got an image, and then you've got this op directory. So how did we start that? Well, so if I go here, there's 2 files that were dropped in here. So they're right here under etc systemd system. And the first one is the node exporter service. And then there's and then if we were to, let's do an ls-l on this so you can see this is a link, right? This is a file that links back. This is just a soft link back to the node exporter service. But how did we populate that? Did I go put those into those images so that they would get pulled? No, we actually did this with an overlay as well. So if we bump out of here, wwctl overlay list, overlay. Then here is that one, because I made it as node exporter, so I would be able to find it later. Let's say node exporter -a, and here's all the things we did. We actually defined the directory paths in case they didn't exist, and then we did 2 things. We had the node exporter service, so let's look at that file. We'll cat out. What's in this node exporter file that Scott is populating to his systems? Well, I just dropped in the actual file. I could have also used some special variables to just grab the template from the Werewolf server if I wanted to. But then there's another one, which is right here, down in the default target wants. Yeah, we'll grab it like this because it'll be easier to grab. And this one's doing something kind of interesting. And it says import link to etc systemd system node exporter service. And there's all this little gobbledygook, all this syntax, right? And we don't want to memorize syntax, right? But if I say overlay werewolf link, right? To do an overlay in werewolf and then to provide a link, right? I think it'll be right here. It might be under templates. Oh, so there's a whole bunch of stuff about overlays in here, and then a whole bunch of things about templates, right? Mainly, the main thing for me is I'll go copy templates. They say good writers borrow, great writers steal. I should be able to go look at the templates down here. Where are they at? I know they have them. Oh, here they are, templates. Yeah, so this is how you include a link somewhere. So if you want to import something as a soft link like we did, then we could do it, or a symlink, right? Soft link, symlinks. This is how you would do it. So you would import a link to that on the local machine, which is how systemd wants to know that it's going to start something. So it's there. Copy and steal. Oh, copy and steal everything is important, man. Good writers borrow, great writers steal. You just want to steal in such a way that it looks like it's your own, right? Oh, and I mean, that's like the age of AI, isn't it? Like everything in AI is stolen from somewhere. So that's kind of the way this all works. So yeah, so that's how that works. And then Prometheus was just a simple, you go over here, actually go over here. And my Prometheus servers, it's easy to populate once you understand how Prometheus scrapes. So every node was sitting there exposed. Once we get node exporter running on a node, and then we get the firewall to allow that port through, which by the way were these commands here. As we were doing this, it just looked like this. Just open a port, add a firewall, CMD, permanent, add service Prometheus, node exporter, and then reload. That's all we had to add on the servers, right, to get it to allow. Looks like this right here. So on Prometheus, Prometheus is going to scrape any nodes that you tell it to. It's like Ron Burgundy and the teleprompter. It'll do whatever you tell it to do. So right here in my home lab, I'm a simple guy. All my stuff is in this lab.json for the lab. And you might say, well, Scott, that seems pretty simple. It is. Oh, whoops. That's all it is. It's some simple JSON. And each one of these is its own definition. But then when I was adding things like werewolf, I did it as its own definition. And when I did vault the other day, I did it as its own definition. So Prometheus is pretty easy to work with if you're like, well, shoot, I can just copy one of those and switch it to my other target and switch it to another. That's easy. That is pretty easy. That's all it takes right there. But there is one other configuration that's non-standard that I have to show you. To use this directory, to use the directory that I'm in, and to slurp in all of these .json files, I did have to make one change to the Prometheus default. So the default Prometheus is the YAML here. And this is the only thing I had to do is to do prolog lab scrape, you have to add this file sd config and then files anything.json. Now sometimes people don't like that. Like when I do this professionally, not in my home lab where I'm just a mess, I would typically do that. There would be a nodes slash everything JSON, and then everything would be down in nodes. Or sometimes even compute, storage, infrastructure, and those nodes would be broken off here, and then I would just add multiple of these for each of the different things that I wanted to do. Plus I can add, as you see here, you can add tags however you want, so you can have it be specific jobs, teams. I actually don't know the number of limits of labels that you can have. But those labels are super useful because then when you query Prometheus, you can actually limit down. So if we go look here, these are all presenting the same information, but some of them are team infra, so that's these nodes. And then the other ones are over here like team lab. So if we were to go here, here's all the lab boxes. Makes sense. That's how they're identified here. But then these ones are infra. So team lab. For werewolf, he's lab, and then team vault, he's over in infra, so he shows up over here. So vault shows up here because that's where the node is defined, and then we can query and start to cut things up all kinds of different ways. That just becomes like Prometheus queries, and then you just build those right into Grafana just like this. It's just a Prometheus query right here where it looks for things based on teams, and then there's the teams there. And you say, Scott, could you do that by any other variable? Yes, I could. So could I carve them up as the different types of lab servers? Yes, we could. Just depends on what you want to look at, right? We can carve things. Once we understand the metrics, guys, we can go carve things up and look at things all the different ways we want. And I often tell you guys, and this is something I actually asked my college students this the last 2 nights because I'm teaching it's like Network 350 and Network 314. They're both these cloud service classes. One is more Azure, and then the other one is just generic cloud. And I asked the students, I'm like, so go look at like what you can see in AWS CloudWatch. Go look at all the values and metrics you can pull out of a server. And then the question is, well, what do you want to see? And the answer is, well, fuck, I mean, you could get into an analysis paralysis. There's so many things to look at on a server. Oh yeah, absolutely, Stovepipe. So PromQL is right here. In my home lab, it's where's he at? Right here. So here's my home lab, and I can go look at any of these, right? And I can just go find any of these servers right here. I can say up just to start. I'll just say up, and it'll give me all the servers in my environment that are up or down. So zeros are downs, up are ones. And then I can start to carve this up with like label selectors. So I can say in here, and by the way, it'll try to help me out so much. I'll say, go ahead and give me job is something like, right? So some equals that, yeah. Something like the word lab, right? And then now when I do it, you're gonna see this job right here. Actually, it might be team that I wanna do. Hold on, team. It's trying to help you all the time. Now we're gonna limit, you're not gonna see team infra anymore or team XCP and G. None of those. You're only gonna see team lab all the way down. So these queries here that we construct in here are very useful then to go drop over to Grafana. Best thing I can show you guys, this is absolutely the best thing I can show you here. Prom labs. The PromQL cheat sheet is the absolute best thing. Oops, the absolute best thing I can show you guys. I'm gonna link this to you. This is the best thing I've ever found for this. And let's say you're like, Scott, okay, I don't have time to watch you right now. I don't really like listening to your voice anymore. I'm just going to go look at this. All right. So if you want to know the rate of increase of something, this is the query you would do. But then that's kind of abstract, and you're like, well, Scott, I'm not going to remember that. Okay, now they let you open it in Prometheus in their environment, and then you hit the button, and it shows you what it's actually going to show you. So here's the rate. So it's doing a rate against the demo API request duration seconds count for the last 5 minutes, right? So that's a time series. And then now you can see the rate of increase for API bar status 200. It's increased by 18, almost 19 over the last 5 minutes. There's been a rate of increase. That's good. So it's increased by almost 19 over the last 5 minutes. There's been a rate increase from the original. And then you can go and you could start to figure this stuff out. And then you can start to turn this into a graph. And you're like, hey, show me what that looks like. And they just have test data running in their environment, running 200s and 500s. So you'll notice very quickly, you go, well, there's only 200s and 500s. Oh, there's 1 or 2 400s. Now you can also filter by those status. Like, I don't care good stuff. I only want to see bad. Or I do want to see all the statuses because I want to compare my 200s to anything else. Because 200's okay. 1 is informational, 300 is redirect, 400 is client-side error, so you're a dummy. Well, if we're the ones getting it, we're the dummy with a 400. With a 500 error, the server's the dummy, right? The server's got something misconfigured. So anyways, this is, and by the way, I was telling my students about that because this is very important to understand if you're doing any type of work in this space. But yeah, PromQL will teach you, these are all the things that I'll go reference so I don't have to know them off the top of my head. Like gauges and aggregation over time and stuff, and quantiles. If you want to learn, hey, what's in the top 90th percentile, only tell me the things that are, in the top 90th percentile. It'll allow you to do that. And then again, you can go look at it right now in real time. You go, okay, these are the ones that are in the top percentage of time responses or whatever, right? And then if there's a graph for it, it'll give you a graph and it'll show you what's going on. So pretty good little tool. I think the Prom Labs is like the best thing for learning Prometheus on the web. So that's my thoughts on that anyways. Although you're not doing the configuration of Prometheus. The configuration of Prometheus is pretty straightforward. We actually have some labs up in Killer Coda that show you how to build it too. One thing that I'm very, very behind on in my home lab environment is I use PromQL still, Promtail to send log files, but the preferred method nowadays is a tool called Alloy. So I need to update Alloy to send my logs out of my servers now. So I will be doing that probably here in the next few days in the environment too. So I'll tag that in the messages. So if any of you are watching this later, come hang out on YouTube later and want to watch it. Also, a lot of times I'll post stuff that I think is interesting that we did up in the Discord. So you guys will always have like the events in Discord, so it always shows you what we're talking about. So, all right, what else do we have here? We've done all that, and we've built all this stuff up. We've got decent monitoring if we wanted to see how healthy our systems were and what's going on in there. So that's kind of a decent little start to our monitoring anyways. What else? I showed you guys how the Werewolf populates stuff. So Werewolf has again 2 components. It's got the images, and images are kind of like the baked in components, and then the overlays are kind of like the frosting on top. So if you want to think of it as like, if somebody built cupcakes for a birthday party or something, and you're like, okay, I want 30 cupcakes that are chocolate or whatever, I don't know, whether they bake them. But then you're like, well, but for the birthday boy, could we have a different frosting on his, like a little nicer frosting? And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Or you're like, hey, 15 kids are going to be girls and 15 are going to be boys. Could we have different colors for them? Whatever. And if that was the case, that would be very easy to do. And overlays allow us to do that. If you didn't see when I was showing this earlier, well, let's do it for one node so it's more apparent. All those overlays are defined here as either a runtime overlay or a system overlay, right? So I could have for any server like Rocky 1, he's inheriting these from the default, but within his own configuration, we could add more system overlays if we wanted to. Now, the next question is going to be, what's the difference between a system overlay and a runtime? A system overlay is a one-time shot at the beginning of the deployment of the server. These ones are shot one time off, and they will never change again on the server. Runtime overlays are a configurable time where the server checks in with its www client and gets an updated host file and a SSH authorized keys file. So if I go to Rocky 1 and I do a system CTL status for www client, I should see that it's been checking in and grabbing information for its runtime overlay in this environment, it looks like it's every 10 minutes. That's configurable in the werewolf.conf file. So that is configured right here. It's by default every 60 seconds, and I'll tell you if your cluster gets over 1,000, that's a nightmare. If you have over 1,000 nodes in a cluster and you're grabbing your runtime overlays every minute, it'll start to bring even over, we were doing over like 10 gig and 100 gig links. It starts to bring the device that's serving it to its knees. So we don't do that. We typically, when we do real deploys for customers, it's typically 600, which is fine because things like that shouldn't be changing very often. So, but I need to get to writing that course because I have all the ideas for that course out there. We just need to get people building these things and practicing. So, because this is honestly, like I've been telling you guys, I've built in the last 2.5 years on government projects, I've built probably about somewhere between 10 and 12 clusters I've been working on doing different stuff. And I've probably built Werewolf into all of them. All of them have had Werewolf as the main thing. Over 2 years ago, it was a lot more XCAT, but XCAT isn't really being deployed much anymore. And then there was a lot of Bright clusters back in the day, and NVIDIA bought Bright. And then Bright is it's still kicking, but Bright is a cluster manager for people that don't want to know Linux. So like if you have a team of researchers and one of your researchers is pretty tech savvy, they'll just set up like a Bright cluster. That typically is the way it is because then you can do minimal command line. You don't need to know much. But these other ones require you to know some Linux, obviously. A couple other things to point out too, real quick. In our Discord, you can always go to, no, not our direct messages. I don't want to see direct messages. Events. Up here, you can go to, we have the Werewolf user group. So this is open to anybody that wants to know more about Werewolf. And this is actually run by the CIQ organization. So CIQ are the guys that run Rocky Linux and Apptainer and a bunch of different tools and stuff like that. So this is theirs. This will be May 13th. So this is what, next week? Is that right? Yeah. So next Wednesday. This will be there, and then that's my time. So if you go look it up in your time, it'll say it in whatever your time is. But that's the link to their Zoom session. It's recorded. You can always go look at it later. But I think there's some value in that for people that want to get plugged into the community. They also have an open Slack. You can go get in their Slack anytime. I can check right now what their Slack numbers are. Let's see if I can see how many people are over there. Let me see. Go check their Slack out. I had to restart my server earlier today, or my home system. So, did they tell me how many people are in here? Hold on. 686. We got 686 people in their Slack, so that's pretty good. I mean, there's a fair amount of real stuff going on in there that I think is probably useful for people. They have things that are posted to their YouTube and stuff like that. The last thing was 6th May, so that was today. Yeah. So if you were like, hey, I want to get involved in that, you can go get involved in that now. You can start working. They have all kinds of stuff on their GitHub. You could get in there and develop if you wanted to, right? All kinds of work people can do. So, all right. HomeLab looks pretty stable then for now. We'll probably leave it. We've got the reporting, so we'll check the reporting in the morning, make sure that all comes through correctly. Sending, are you streaming tonight? Are you getting on at all? Or if you're getting on later. Could find out if anybody's on so we could rate them. Or we can keep working on lab stuff. The funny thing is, even if I get offline, I'm still going to be working on my lab stuff. I just, got to figure out what I want to work on. But see if anything else is going on here. We could. Oh, I didn't even open this back up. Hold on, since I rebooted. We do have the Wireshark study guide that we've been working on as well. and I'll pull this up so you guys can see it here. Where's that thing at? This is in our Discord as well, but I release it as a PDF for you guys. But as we're going through our little study guide here, we're keeping track of, so if you wanted to get Wireshark certified, for us, we're not, like, I know I'm not necessarily interested in the certification, but some of the guys have kind of expressed interest. So we've been going through and just hanging out on Saturdays and talking through and taking some screenshots of the different pieces of the certification. So we're down through, well, shoot, we're down through like section 3, I think, now. And we went and grabbed all of these different components and where we would go look for more stuff. This was, yeah, so this was earlier, this was on Saturday, and this was discussed. So it was utilize different methods of capturing traffic. So direct on the endpoint, network tap, infrastructure device, port mirror, multi-port capture. So we wrote some of that down, and then how to set that up, how you can set up multiple ports and all that kind of stuff. All right, hold on, I gotta get all this other crap out of the way so I can read messages. Wait, Zorgel said, wouldn't mind seeing C-Router config. I'm interested in segregating a new VLAN and Proxmox VLAN would be managed in Unify. Okay, yeah, I could show that real quick. Let me pull this up. Let me capture. Yeah, so this was all the ways that we could limit and rotate through files and all that kind of stuff. And then we also did filtering, capture, and traffic. So we went through, through 3, grabbing a bunch of information and how we filter things. And then next week we're going to do 4, or we'll do 4. And then probably we're going to start digging into some of the stuff from 5, because 5 is all of this Ethernet stuff and ARP and IPv4, and it's a lot of theoretical stuff for people. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. All right, let me show you guys. So this was the question was about C-Router. So C-Router exists right here. Purposely, because of the way that I built him, C-Router doesn't allow SSH connection. So I can't SSH into him. I can only go through the console here, but I will make it bigger for you guys so you can see it. So here's C-Router. Oh, let's clear him up. And the first thing about him is if we do an IP-BR ADDR, we'll see two major networks. He is on the 192.168.11 network as the .160 address. That's very important. He has to be that because that's how other devices route to those devices. That's the hop that's defined actually inside of our my internal router knows that if any traffic is going to 192.168.200, which is non-routable out in the world anyways, to send it to 160. So that's a defined static route that I have in the home lab. Basically, if anything's going there and my router sees it, it shoots it over that way. Okay. Internal to the VLAN off network, it's 192.168.200.1. That's what's happening there. And then the IP tables look like this. They are just, and also I do, let me see, sysctl. We also turned on net IPv4 forwarding. So IPv4 forwarding is allowed on these interfaces. It should be, yeah, turned on for, where's he at? Ethernet 0 and 1 should have it on. So 0 and 1 have IPv forwarding on. Yeah. So forwarding happens. And then we do our IP tables -L. And this is weird. I thought I had all the configurations in here when I first set this up. There were some other things that I was adding later. But these are basically how I set them up originally. We just allowed network address translation from 200, and then it can send information out, and then it also allows traffic in. And then I saved it, but I don't think that saved. Yeah, that's not actually populated. But this is how I originally configured it. I thought that was already saved out over there. And then this was me. I was trying to only allow port 80 for some stuff and that kind of stuff. And then my home router is internally, it's a ASUS router. It's like a mid-range. I think it's about $650. So it's not like a low-end router like I would normally have bought. This one's more mid-range. And then let's see, yeah, it's an RT AXE 7800. So it's more mid-range. I think it's admin. What is this? No, I don't think that's right. Might be that. No. Let's see. Is it this? Yeah. And then it shows my external IP. I don't mind if people know my external IP. It's all routed anyways through the DNS. So you guys can get to it through the prolog asuscom.com. And then, yeah, I'm pretty sure I have a static route inside the LAN. Yeah, 192.168.200.0 goes through 192.168.11.160. So that's hard. That's hard set. So any traffic that my device sees that's trying to leave, which would never be routed out to the external world anyways, because it's classless interdomain, right? That gets sent over to there. So I didn't hard code that. So I'll have to do that if I add any future ones, which I do plan on adding a future one here. So my future environment will look like, where's that at? Oh, over here. If I add any other ones, so then you say, well, how do you get the VLAN tagging? Well, see, VLAN tags are ignored by devices that aren't aware of VLANs. So like an unmanaged switch or a switch that's not configured to care about VLANs ignores them. But in my environment, and the way Proxmox works and the way that XCPNG works, they do respect VLAN tagging. So if I go to like my Auto1 server and I look at his hardware, his network has a VLAN tag right here of tag equals 1. Over here on XCPNG for like C router, if I go to his networking, this interface right here, if I look at his properties, I might not see it there, but I'll see it over here on networking. So lab internal is on VLAN 1, and then the other networks, which are, so the other networks just don't have a VLAN tag on them. And the only reason that matters is because if a VLAN tag is left empty and then a switch is not configured to care about it, it won't care about it. But if a VLAN is configured, so in this case, like VLAN is configured, it will not accept traffic, or traffic won't leave that interface for that network, even though it's a virtual network, if it has a different 802.1q tag inside of the frame, right? So if the frame is tagged with that, which they all are in VLAN 1, then they all stay in their own network unless they go through C router to route to the other net. So that's how you like limit broadcast storms and that kind of stuff. Stuff that doesn't really matter to us in a small home lab, but does matter a little bit in the enterprise. So, and you know, some of you guys know I started out as a network engineer, but I just didn't love it. So I left that back in the early 2000s, right? But that is kind of my background. So anyways, but if any of you guys are setting that up, like Zorgle, if you're setting it up, or Stovepipe, if you're setting something like that up in your home lab and you're ever stuck, just let me know. I'll hop in something and check it out with you too. Yeah, I do use more. I use less sometimes. Yeah, I do all that kind of stuff. Older systems didn't always have less on them, but they always had more. So, especially Unix style systems for sure had that. Stovepipe. I tell people all the time, man, if I can show stuff in the Discord, or if I can hop in somewhere with somebody, I'll do it. It's only like the only thing that I tell people this, like the only thing I have to charge people for is like if you're like, oh shoot, this is for my company and I have to have you like sign an NDA or something. I'm like, well, my wife will kill me if I don't charge people for that. But like if it's like a home lab something and we can just be in the Discord talking about it, I'll definitely work with anybody on this stuff because this stuff's fun to me. And by the way, again, I could add as many VLANs in my environment as I wanted, as long as I had either one router that controlled them all. I actually was thinking about this last night. If I want to add more, do I just make C router again in this environment and then just keep adding interfaces to him? He would work just fine. But then I was like, well, but then we might saturate him. Somebody might be doing big downloads. So I'll probably break it out and then have each individual one. You got a project. Oh, nice. Protect. I don't even know what that is. Nice. Okay. Yeah, Stovepipe, that would be cool. I'm definitely interested in that kind of stuff. So I don't even know what that is. A little vault. What is that? Protect? What is that? Is that what that is? Techly. Oh, okay. Oh, one of these little guys. Little tiny boy. Okay. What's this guy gonna do? Okay. And he's fast too. Oh. All right. Oh, you're stuck on ads? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, it's like just a little desk box. But he still does HDMI out, or HD out. Yeah. Okay, okay. They got their actual pinouts. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. You guys gotta remember, I worked in a data center for a long time, so I'm used to reading sheets and stuff like that as we're dropping boxes in racks. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Little mini rack. Yeah, yeah. Intel, small Intel processor. Good, good. Yeah, yeah. Still a good little toy. Or they'll probably do some real work on it too, but yeah, yeah. It's nice. Alright. Yeah, yeah. What are those, if you don't mind me asking, what do those run? I didn't see costs on there, but I imagine a few $100. Probably pretty reasonable. Some kind of little, yeah, yeah. Probably pretty reasonable. Yeah, so we'll keep working on the different lab things. I've got some training to give for work in the next few weeks, so I'm gonna be working on that training stuff. Also, I'm starting a new course at college that I'm going to college, so I got to be working on my dissertation. My dissertation will probably be about 200 pages when it's done, and it's somewhere right now between about 0 and 10. So I have a lot of fucking work to write on my dissertation. Oh, you got the consumer grade for around 300? Okay, yeah, that's pretty reasonable. It's pretty reasonable. Oh, Stovepipe, it doesn't send links through, so you might have to if you drop it in Discord for me, it'll be my risky click of the day. Just drop it in like homelab or something, and I'll pull it up. Also, it's really funny. All these names are not, well, not all the names are covered, but most names are covered. And then it looks like Stovepipe is not covered, so that's kind of funny. Doesn't really matter much, right? Because it's Discord, but yeah, we got all kinds of stuff in the homelab chat. If you drop something in there, I'll see it. All right, what else do we have to do? I don't even know. Like, it's funny. This is these two right here that aren't named. These two screen sessions. I'm like, I don't even know what I was doing over there. I'm gonna get rid of them. So it's like that was like the dark part of my system that I wasn't even looking at. Oh yeah, let's go look at this. Oh yeah, we like Jeff Geerling. Yeah, Jeff Geerling is a Geerling guy. He does. At one point he was like an 80% contributor to Ansible code. Ansible modules and stuff, so he had a lot of contributions early on. All right, this is his little mini rack. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I think. Did you post one of these before? Because somebody posted one of these very recently. So, sending. I have to move over to Team. By the way, just so you know, in the government world, there's no team either anymore. It's all Tmux because Screen isn't being supported anymore. So, I only use Screen because I'm kind of lazy and have always used it. But I do have to start using Tmux because you have to use it in the government side of things. So. We don't even put Screen on systems anymore, so I have to play with. I think I just have to learn how to do Control B instead of Control A or something. I don't know. But it's yeah, you guys will notice I mostly use Screen but I do have tmux configs that if I went and started using them. I remember a few years back, one of the guys after a we had a screen, or I did a stream, and then I got off, and he was like, he pinged me on Discord, and he's like, hey, just hop down in here for like 20 minutes. I'll show you how to use tmux. It'll be super easy. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I did it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. But then I never used it again. But yeah, it is a STIG requirement, but they backed it off. It's not, you're right, Stovepipe, it's not an actual STIG in Rel 9 for sure anymore. It was for a while. But the main thing about it is you can't use screen in government systems. Well, none of my systems, because it's not supported anymore. If you don't have somebody's back, if you don't have a back end to go to contact, or somebody's not supporting it, we can't use it anymore. So yeah, so that's pretty much where we are. And Zorgo, you change it to Alt-A. Nice. Yeah. I don't think so. It's funny because Fisherman's always been a tmux guy too, I think. But I don't think it was Fisherman, because I already knew him by that point. It was somebody else, and he was like, "Yeah, just hop in Discord, and 20 minutes, I'll show you how to do it all." And I did it with him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's fine." I didn't keep up with it, so it's like it kind of like just faded away. But I know it's not much different than my normal jumping through screen sessions. I just have to learn a different key binding for it and stuff. Change all your binding, Zorgal. Yeah. But that's the thing, Zorgal. The more you work with other engineers, even if people don't like to admit this, like if you're honest with yourself, when you work with other people, you start to take on their kind of like, you're like, oh, that is a good idea that they do when they come up to their workstation, or that is kind of a cool idea. I will stand at my desk on Friday. I used to always stand at my desk on Fridays, but that was just because I had a standing desk, and I would move it up on Fridays and then just stand all day or whatever. But Cole catching strays, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I'll leave this up. We should link that. Oh, you did link that already in the Discord. So that's good. People can read through this stuff. Yeah, Gearling's been around a while. I remember I went to his talk at Ansible Fest a while back. I was talking with somebody about it, and they said, oh yeah, I was probably in that same room with you. And it was his first time where he gave a talk at Ansible Fest, and then he was doing like a John Hammond with himself. So he was talking to himself, talking back to himself on the video. And then also it was right when he started getting into playing with Raspberry Pis. And I was like, I've been using Pis since they first came out. I use them for little retro Pis in my home environment here. I have like retro game nights over at the house. In fact, I should get those set up for when King Buns comes, because King Buns is going to be here this weekend. He's going to be hanging out with me this weekend, and I'll probably get him and I hooked up with some little Raspberry Pi. I also have a arcade station that's built out of an old Xbox, and we could play like all the old. I have thousands of games to play for like retro and arcade games and stuff. So I'll get him on some of those things. He's gonna have his dog with him too, so we're gonna be hanging out with the puppy. So that'll be good. That'll be officially. I mean, I've known people from the like on-prem Phoenix Linux users group for a long time, but this will be the first person from outside of like from outside of the state, I think, that I've ever met for Prolog. Yeah, so like for all the years of running Prolog, it'll be like the first time I've ever had somebody come from out of town and come hang out. So people have talked about it a lot over the years, but that's kind of there. Sock, you said, can I repeat steps to the lab and run Prometheus and Grafana on top of Raspberry Pi 5? Yes, you could. Use a server for a cluster and another Raspberry Pi. What OS is better for setup? So with Raspberry Pis, the simplest, easiest way to get going is with a tool. They have a version of Debian called Raspbian that works pretty well. And you should be able to build everything out on there. And the steps that I would use, if you're like, well, Scott, how would you do it? I would do it like this. I have killer code of labs that'll actually show you how to do all that stuff. And they're already in Ubuntu, so they're very similar to what you're going to run into. So this is where I would go. Here's my labs. Oh, there's also ratings. So if you guys like the labs, you can rate them now. Let me go Linux labs. And I've had pretty good ratings, but if anybody wants to do them and like them, here in Prometheus. So you want to do Prometheus and Grafana. Yeah, so this is Grafana with Prometheus and Node Exporter. This would basically teach you how to do it all right here. So I'll drop that link in there for you guys on both sides. But this will, if we were to run through this, we're not going to run through it right now, but this lab teaches you how to deploy. So you want to monitor telemetry in your environment. That means metrics at a distance. and you know that Grafana can do that, so you start to build this tool out, and then this lab just walks you through how to do all that stuff. So we're not going to do that right now, though, but that's something, and maybe a load balancer for both. So load balancers, it depends what you mean by load balancers. Typically, what I do if I'm running, so like if we're saying like, oh, I want high availability, what I actually end up doing is the service sits on top of a tool called CoroSync with Pacemaker between them. So Pacemaker watches to make sure both of the nodes are up, and then CoroSync only turns on the node that we want it to. So these are very common type of things. And then typically what we do is only one side is active and the other side is passive, but they're listening for a VIP, which is a virtual IP. So what that means is like if this is the .3 server and this is the .4 server in your network, then there's maybe a .5 address that everybody knows to get to Grafana on one side or the other, and then the node that's active with CoroSync will assign that IP address to itself. And then if it gets killed via heartbeat, right? If Pacemaker can't get a heartbeat from the other node, it'll kill it, typically via a tool called like IPMI. It'll kill that, and then it'll take over. It'll take all the resources. We used to call that process stoneth, which is like the funniest term, and that's shoot the other node in the head. So it's STONITH. Stoneth is shoot the other node in the head. So, and it's funny that it's still spelling it wrong, even though I just spelled it for it. But whatever. That's how I do. That's like a poor man's load balancer, because then you just need two pieces of hardware. You don't need an actual load balancing tool. But if you say, oh, I want to use a specific load balancer, typically the types of load balancers I would use, I would just build a reverse proxy for it. So you could use a SOX proxy for that, or you could just have like an Nginx reverse proxy. It's super easy to build. There's literally like probably not a million, but literally in the thousands of tutorials how to do that stuff online. So you just look it up. What am I missing? High Scoot PCAE is currently in idle state, but not discontinued. If you want to confirm, not to be too pushy. Thank you. Yeah. So the thing about it was nobody was ever doing the PCAE, so I just kind of like let it drift off. Like I think like even though I talked about it every week, we have these course discussion posts and nobody was doing them. So like, watch, I'll show you guys what I mean, because again, somebody asked me this and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but like if we go to the automation course, right, and we go to like, let's say like even week 11, I'm the only one that commented. So and then you go, well, but by like week 8, you were kind of slowing down. Well, yeah, let's go to week 8. There's like Traffic King was doing it. I think that's Kenny Died. So like a few people were doing it, but it was very like that's 2 people doing it. So it was, I don't know. I kind of fell behind, but no, I will tell you that the course itself is done, but I do have a few more labs to build. So if anybody's like, well, where's that course at? All of our courses are free, and they are all right here. Right? So if you go here, here's all of our course books. And again, the guys in the server built all these, so they're pretty. I think they're pretty well done. Pull that a little wider, there they show up. Linux admin. Yeah, the Linux automation course is essentially done, but we really just need to get 11, 12, 13, 14. So it needs to be published a little more. But I've finished all the documentation for it. I just need to publish the labs. So if anybody needs this, here's that. Yeah, Nginx works. I use Nginx as a load balancer too. It's pretty easy to set that up. So, oh man, like my sides are killing me right now. But yeah, that's where I would mostly do that stuff. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll eventually get back into probably doing. I'll probably do a rerun of it and run everybody through it again, and then that's when we'll actually do certification or actual certificates for it. Because yeah, the first time, I mean, just there wasn't a lot of like what I would say like people actually doing it. And then Prolog got a revamp, so it got redone by one of our guys who writes it all. And actually, I haven't looked at this in a full screen yet, so it looks like it's pretty laid out differently now. But then there's also featured members. You can come in here and see if you do have any certificates, but you won't be a featured member unless you opt into that, because not everybody wants to put their name on the internet. But people that were okay with having their name out there, that it has this validation that you did the course or whatever. So I think that's kind of cool. All right. But anyways, I think we're probably good for the night. If anybody needs me, I'll be down in the Discord. I'm always around Discord in some way. But this stuff is all, I think any of you guys can do this stuff if you're interested in doing it. You just have to get out there and start working on it, right? You just got to start working on Linux, start getting at the command line. There's no like shortcut to get good at the command line. You just have to go spend time with it. And I do really think everybody can do it. You just have to kind of get in there and start working on it. So, all right, I'll talk to some of you guys later on this week, and everybody.